Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor and the Master as they travel the Vortex and arrive at episode 497 in Space Year 2003. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
How's your Space Year 2003 going?
Way better than my Space Year 2020 was.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's sad to think that Space Year 2003 was so long ago.
Yes, indeed.
Wasn't it, though? Does anybody else feel like this year has just been kind of like we're making up for last year being super slow? This year seems to just be absolutely flying by? Or is that just me?
Last year flew for me, too.
I was going to say, it must be just you, because I don't think either year has been particularly fast.
Okay.
Did you guys do anything this week?
I watched Loki.
Yeah, I watched Loki, too.
We did not watch Loki. We are going to be behind because our TV night is tomorrow night.
It's really good.
That's what I've heard. Everybody seems to be really jazzed about it. I am current on Bad Batch.
See, and I haven't seen the last one of that. Keith, you read anything? Any more
I'm
comics?
still working my way through Thrawn. I'm not making as much progress as I would like on it, but I'm getting there. It's good so far.
I didn't really watch anything other than we're still going through our Marvel movie watch through, and we're up to, what did we just watch? Black Panther. And I did not know, at least on Disney Plus, they have on the the opening splash Marvel Studios thing where they always flip through the different, now it's different scenes from the movies. They've done a Chadwick Boseman one like they did for Stan Lee when he passed. And so on the front of Black Panther, they have one of those tribute splash screens to him. So it's pretty cool. I didn't know they had done that. Nobody ever, I thought maybe I would have seen somewhere somebody say that online, and I was surprised by it. So
didn't they do that theatrically for Chadwick, or am I mistaken? Maybe I just remember seeing it on Disney Plus.
He would have died after.
Yeah, he passed after all of the films were done.
Even Spider-Man and everything.
Yeah, we haven't had a Marvel film since the pandemic, and he died last year. So
I must have just seen it when they announced it for Disney Plus. Then
maybe. It was pretty neat.
That's nice though.
Yeah. Sean, I know you've been watching stuff. Come on, chime in here.
How was Into the Heights?
It was wonderful.
In the Heights.
In the Heights.
Into the Heights and out again. Sorry.
It's a mixture of Into the Woods and In the Heights.
I don't know if we'd want to taint it with that, but no, I thought it was wonderful. My spoiler-free review is available on Flicks with Friends, but I'm fortunate that I've seen the stage play when Civic Theater did it, which was my first introduction to it. I kind of fell in love with it, and I think they did a very good job of adapting it. I know there's some people who are upset over some of the changes that inevitably when you adapt something, things change, and it may have altered a couple of key moments emotionally, but the reason that they did it made sense for the visual medium of film, so I was okay with it. But yeah, no, it's really good, and it felt, we went and saw it at the theater as opposed to staying home and doing the HBO Max, and it feels kind of like the perfect go out to the theater film. It's just big and joyous and a lot of good music.
Yeah, it was one of those. My daughter wants to see it, and she was kind of fishing around to see if we all wanted to go or not, and then she said she was probably going to go with friends, and I thought, okay, that's fine, then I'll stay home and watch it, because it's just so much easier. I like the theater experience, but it's just so much easier.
There is a certain, I don't know what, about staying home and being in my jammies, and,
right?
Just the ease of it, but getting back into the theaters, and still lamenting that I missed a couple of them. I would have loved to have seen Godzilla versus Kong on an IMAX screen,
yeah,
something big and splashy.
Right.
But no, it's been good to get back in them.
Yeah.
We also watched Spiral, which on the other end of the spectrum was on the other end of the spectrum. It was not joyous or wonderful or
what is that one?
From the book of Saw.
Oh yeah. This is the Chris Rock version.
The Chris Rock one, and it's I mean, you guys know me. That's not my bag anyway. Although I do think that probably the concept of the Saw movies is interesting, but I've never seen them, any of them. But I understand from others that it just kind of, the first one's not bad, and then it de-evolves into torture porn pretty quick.
Diminishing returns.
Yeah, well, if you can squeeze blood from a stone, that's exactly what Lionsgate is attempting to do with this franchise. Except they're filming it and making it as gross as possible. Not impressed.
I've still only seen the first one, and I'm not a fan of torture porn, but I thought the first one was pretty good because it was just kind of a neat original concept. So
that's what I keep hearing. Everybody that I've talked to has said the first one's actually really pretty good, and a lot of people will make allowances for the second one. Apparently, it's the third one and on that they just fall apart.
I go 4 on. I think I give allowances for 3 because I think it makes a fairly decent trilogy in the fact that 3 meshes the heavier gore of 2 with the psychological of 1 and gives it a decent balance, and then it loses that balance after that. I gave up after, I think, 4.
Yeah, not really a selling point. Maybe at some point I'll go back and watch the first one, but...
It's definitely worth watching. There's also a short that it's based off of that you could just probably get the same cliff notes for.
Yeah.
That has one of the best, one of the good twists in cinema. The first one does.
Yeah, I would agree.
This is just one of the things that was so frustrating is that the detective part of it was actually kind of interesting. And then they would stop everything so that, oh, wait, it's time for another bloody massacre scene. And it's like, really? You didn't need this. I mean, I get it. You pretty much had to put from the book of Saw after the title to get people in the seats. But, okay. Yeah. I didn't think it was well written either. I know a lot of people are praising it because they, it's new and it's like, no, it really isn't, because none of these characters got any development over the course of the film.
Didn't Chris Rock co-write it?
He's one of the producers, and I did a little research on it, and I guess it depends on which version of events you subscribe to, because in one of the versions of events, Chris Rock had a meeting that he inadvertently bumped into somebody who knew somebody at Lionsgate, and he floated the idea past them, and then they had a meeting, and things went from there. The other version of events is that Chris Rock walked up to the executive at Lionsgate, kicked open the door to his office, and said, "I know how to fix this." So, grain of salt, depending on which one you want to believe. But
well, they got one of the Saw directors. He did 2, 3, and 4, and he's from Overland Park.
Oh, is that right? Anything else?
Yeah, that's been it. Been kind of a quiet week, really.
I listened to the new Doctor Who audio from Big Finish called Out of Time 2, The Gates of Hell. It's the one with David Tennant and Peter Davison. So it's the 10th Doctor and the 5th Doctor reuniting again. And it's got Cyberman, Keith.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the big plot point. It's good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun from just the perspective of listening to those guys together, because they really just have great chemistry together, and they play off of each other really well, and it's great fun to listen to. There were some things that they did that were kind of timey-wimey, cheaty, I think, but it didn't, not to the detriment of the plot. It was just some things that I thought, okay, this is something that's okay for a multi-Doctor story, but if you do this here, then it's like a slippery slope of more and more they can do it, and then it kind of loses its zest or its gimmick, and it borrows. I mean, it's not something that's not been done before, at least in some way or measure, but it plays with time in a way that I think is a little cheaty, but it works for the story. So,
What? A 10th Doctor story went timey-wimey?
Well, it kind of went 11th Doctor timey-wimey is what it did. So that was what struck me about it, that it was a 10th Doctor story doing something that Moffat kind of did in the 11th Doctor. Not particularly the same device, but it's something I could easily see in an 11th Doctor story. So anyway, it's good. I like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's the second one. The first one was him and Tom. So I did the 10th and the 4th Doctor, which I think I did a little mini review on it too when I listened to it. And then this one. So far, they're great. I'm really enjoying them. I'm looking forward to the next one, which will be 10 and 6. Although I think that comes out next year, 2022. I think is when that one releases.
Are they all connected at all?
No, they really haven't been. It's just 10 ending up in a scenario with the next, with the next guy in line. It's really all it had. There hasn't been any connectors so far, other than the titles.
Right. That's why I wasn't, since they had the same titles, I wasn't sure if there was a connection.
No, I think the only connection is the fact that he's meeting classic doctors.
Was there at all, without, I don't know, no spoilers, but was there a reference at all to Time Crash?
Yes.
Were they aware that they had met before then, or?
Now that I say that, yes, I think in briefly in passing, there's a "you again" type thing. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, of course, if that comes from David Tennant, it could still be.
No, I think it's from Five's perspective that he says it, and almost exacerbated. All right, well, should we move on to our reviews of the stuff that we all listen to?
Yeah, the Destination Wars.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions, The First Doctor Adventures, Volume 1.
Attention, citizens. The broadcast will begin in 2 hours.
It means we are stranded on destination, child. If we are trapped in this place and time, we must make use of the resources we have.
So where are we this time?
The TARDIS could tell me nothing.
Is that because of all your improvements?
Recalibrating the ship is a very delicate procedure. I'll thank you not to mock, young man.
Barbara, look. I think we're still on Earth, but after our time.
Is this really the future?
I am the master, and you will obey me!
Oh, no, you don't.
I can hear fighting. In the street. I'm not sure we should...
Ian!
Big Finish. We love stories.
Bum, bum, bum.
I liked it. Of course, this is my second listen to it.
Fire away. Tell us what you liked about it.
What I liked about it, a large part of it is, it's that stepping back into the first Doctor's era and the method that they would have done it a lot of the way. Like, the storytelling may have some modern sensibilities to it, but the production and the setup and how it all works and is laid out, it's not like a companion chronicle where it feels like, oh, it's a retelling or, trying to not necessarily recapture, but, put a lens on that time period. This is truly trying to recreate the time period, and I think they do a fantastic job, and I think all the actors do a pretty good job with their roles of playing the people who came before them. They're not perfect impersonations of them. They're their own interpretations, but they have the spirit of who the characters are. And I think James Dreyfus does a fantastic job as the Master. The first time I listened to it, I thought it was a very different approach to it. But now as I listened to it this time, I thought there were shades of Roger Delgado to him that I didn't see before. And so I appreciated that subtlety to it. And I think the story is fairly clever too. It feels like this is what a first Doctor Master story would be.
Yeah, I thought the story was it shines as far as its originality goes. It's something that I hadn't even seen echoes of how they did this. Advancing the Master advancing society forward in order to allow them to achieve the means that he needs to get off the planet. I thought that was a really clever idea, especially from the perspective of the citizens that, he goes away and then he comes back and he's always got these insights and helps them advance and has answers for them for, the things that they're doing in their own society and the advancements they're making. And I thought that was really, really a clever idea. And the resolution of it, I think, is passable too. I think it's a really good resolution. So overall, I thought the story was unique and original. I agree with the performances. I think they are all done fantastic. It was difficult at first to start listening to it because, as you said, they all have the spirit, but it's just not quite the characters But by the time I've got about 10 or 15 minutes into it, I had completely forgotten that. It was all at the back of my mind and very forgiving, and I really started to hear it as Ian, Barbara, Susan, the doctor. I fell into it and easily settled into, okay, this is another adventure in the first Doctor era with the characters that we're familiar with. So it worked really well. As far as the Master goes, I would agree. I loved his performance. I would almost say it's shades. It's almost a melding of Delgado and Ainley for me. I kind of felt like there were times that I felt he was channeling Ainley, and there were times that I felt he was channeling Delgado. I think maybe a little more heavy on the Delgado, but yeah, there were times that I could really kind of hear Ainley's Doctor in it as well, which I appreciate because I didn't imagine this Master. To me, this was a Master with a face prior to Delgado. So yes. It was great. That was the easiest one to drop into and really believe that this was the Master, because to me it was just another incarnation of the Master. And then, of course, the second easiest was the Doctor, because we've had how come I always forget his name?
David Bradley.
Thank you, David Bradley. Since we've had David Bradley perform the Doctor before, I've gotten very comfortable with him as the first Doctor. So,
well, and I think they're smart and they ease you into it. Also, there's not a whole lot of. It's a slow start to the story, which helps you kind of get comfortable with the new performances, as opposed to like the next story, kind of. You guys don't know this, but it dumps you into kind of the action and a lot's going on right away. So it kind of assumes at that point you're comfortable with these people who are playing these characters.
I think that goes without saying from the end of this one. It sort of cliffhangers us right into the next story.
It's one of the things that I kind of agree with comments that you've both made at this point. I think, first of all, the atmosphere of this is very spot on for the era. It feels like a First Doctor adventure. It is the length of a First Doctor adventure, going back to a 4-part. And maybe that's just because we haven't done a 4-parter in a while.
It's true. It's been a very long time.
We've been away from the main range for quite some time, and so most of the Big Finish that we've done has been in the hour-long digestible, format that we like. And then suddenly step back into the full-blown 4-parter when we got to part 2 ending. And we were nowhere near the resolution. I'd forgotten that. It was like, oh yeah, there's more. And just kind of got jazzed all over again. Just like with Glenn, it took me about 10 minutes or so of listening to them to kind of get reacclimated with these performers. I remembered that I liked them in the Adventure in Space and Time, but to actually hear them embody these characters is a little different. But then once I was acclimated, everything was, just kind of felt. In fact, the woman that does Susan really came close, I think, on a lot of things. She kind of really nailed that character for me. And the Master, you're both wrong. Yeah, there are shades of Delgado, but it's totally the War Chief. So you can put that to bed. I know who this guy is. He's doing the War Chief.
No, the War Chief is the next face.
Yeah.
But and as far as the story goes, it was really exceptionally well done. A very nifty concept. I liked the fact that all of our characters were really given something to do. and how they split them up to kind of interact with our new guest stars was okay. That's something that very very likely would have happened if this had been a filmed televised episode back in the day.
Yeah.
The only qualm that I had with it, and I can chalk this up easily enough to the Master's own destructive influence, is while the idea of advancing time in fits and spurts to get the technology developed that he needs to get off the planet. Very cool. Totally, yes, that's awesome. The fact that he's a weapons dealer and he's arming both sides in this conflict because he seems to think that the wartime is going to be more productive or necessary for the atomic energy. I don't know that I buy that. I understand. I mean, don't get me wrong. Our own history has very much proven that the times of conflict are great for advancing the technology. But specifically with atomic power, there's quite a lot of evidence that indicates had we not abandoned the atomic energy in order to develop a nuclear arsenal, we would have already been on Mars by this point because of the way the technology for the atomic energy heads and the pathways that were laid out for it. And so to see him continue to, oh yeah, guns, weapons, yeah, do the just really? I mean, because if they'd been peaceful and you kept advancing it, wouldn't they have gone? Because they wouldn't have to stop and rebuild society every 5 years. It just seems like maybe that would have gotten him off planet faster with maybe even something better. But that's my own take. But again, I can chalk that up to the Master being, well, he's destructive. He's not going to nurture society into something awesome. He's going to nurture them into the ground. That's what he does.
Well, I
don't really man qualm.
I think that plot point was for the narrative that they were going for. Is they really, as we said, it really feels like a story that could have taken place in the 1960s. And I think had this been written then, that's exactly the narrative they would have taken. That is exactly the idea they would have used as far as that for atomic advancement. I think the other thing that the story does really well as far as placement for its era is they do simple things like not referring to the TARDIS as often. They just talk about Susan and the Doctor and the Master's people. They don't drop the Time Lord thing, which I really thought they would do that and it would feel out of place, and they didn't. They don't say Time Lord at all. They just say, our people, which was very much in line with how, it was going back then when they were writing these, because they hadn't come up with the idea of what their race was, or their race was. And so I really appreciated that they stayed in that style of writing too. So that's also, I think, what did a really good job of feeling like it was from that same era.
There were a number of little drops too, like the clothes from Marco Polo.
Yeah.
And the fast return switch.
Although I did see that coming.
Yeah.
I did see that coming. It was one of those, I'm not disappointed. I don't think it was this was telegraphed, but it was I actually was one of those things that I was glad that I was right, because it's when that moment comes, it was like, yeah, I knew it, So.
Well, and it's one of those things where how else are they going to be able to get back to where they were with how the TARDIS works at this time frame?
Yeah, right.
Even if the Master got in control of the TARDIS, I mean, we're led to believe that the Doctor and the TARDIS has become, kind of in sync later in life, but right now they obviously aren't, and he doesn't know how to fly it, and so having the Master to step in and know how to do it, that was a nice touch too, where he's complaining about what has the Master or the Doctor done to this console. He's broken all sorts of things on it, and it was a nice way to tie it all back to how it would be.
He was blaming everything except for the fact that he couldn't do it. He was blaming the Doctor for him not being even bringing all this junk on board.
But I also have to believe him, the fact that the Doctor has tweaked and fiddled with his TARDIS so much that the Master couldn't figure it out.
Well, especially since there's masking tape with things written on the console.
Can you imagine the early days of the exploration of that? Like once you got off Gallifrey, okay, where to? And you push a button. Like you've had relative TARDIS theory in class. You have probably gotten a learner's permit at some point in time for the operation of this vehicle, but you never really figured out how to parallel park. Speed limits and things of that nature. So you get in and you fly off, you're away from your people, and you're like, all right. And then you just have to start pushing buttons. And you get the masking tape out and you label it. That's what this does. That's the story I want. I really want to see the first Doctor, like with an honest attempt, with the owner's manual open to volume 87 and, making notes in the margins. And then realizing that due to the temporal properties of the thing, that everything that he just wrote down doesn't apply, except on Tuesdays, and he just throws it away. He's just...
My only complaint with...
I'm sorry, go ahead. I just had a thought what Glenn was saying about with the Master and his destructive tendencies. I guess, had he fostered them into a series of utopias, the Doctor probably wouldn't have much to complain about.
Right.
I mean, he's not really the villain if he genuinely helps the society.
Yeah.
So I guess I undermine my own argument with that. He kind of has to destroy them because he's the Master.
And it cuts the drama of the story, too.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Keith.
My only complaint with the story was I felt that this version of the Doctor at this time in his life wouldn't have necessarily done the switch and gone out to be with everybody while Susan stayed in the time machine, and set it to go forward, and him stay out there and take care of things. Didn't necessarily think he would do that, especially when he was so initially, no, we must do this and get out of here and save ourselves. It felt like a hard shift mid-arguments that he had, and I think had it been Vicky, it would have been in line with that Doctor's character, but I think with Susan around, he's so protective of her that doing something like that, even where it would risk himself, doesn't seem as likely.
Yeah, I don't know. I sort of thought that too, Keith, but I went to my favorite website, the Complete Adventures, and he puts it after... So he places this story, and I think I tend to agree with this, after Reign of Terror.
Yes, definitely.
And before Planet of Giants. And I sort of think that this is before Invasion of Earth, and Dalek Invasion of Earth. So I sort of think that I think maybe that's what they were doing here, was they were trying to make a turning point to the more softer Doctor, because this isn't long before Susan Lee. I mean, the website places all of the first Doctor adventures together in there, so there's obviously would have been more time for growth, but I think that it was meant to be a turning point, and so I think I'd have to agree with how they did it. It does maybe seem like a turn on the dime, but at least the placement of it seems logical to me, because I really do think it's Planet of Giants and beyond where I think we start to see the softening of the Doctor, and then I think Vicky is that area is where it's most notable. Don't get me wrong, but I think that maybe this does a nice job of serving as that turning point, since we don't necessarily see it so distinctly in the TV series itself. So it almost works for me as a place where he kind of has an epiphany or a revelation that, yes, of course, it took Susan for him to see that it was his responsibility, and he needed to go out there and be with them. And I to me, that works. It's almost like a revelation or an epiphany for the Doctor.
Don't forget too that a lot of the change that we see in the first Doctor and how he reacts to things, we've retconned that around Susan.
Well, that's true.
Because it seems like a very logical thing that happens, and there's a very kind of definitive, after this point, he's different. And so we've kind of, put that into that box in order to make it fit. And I suspect that with the way this story is playing out, that they're maybe trying to soften that transition period, and kind of make it a little more gradual, where he becomes the hero that,
right.
We all know and love, who interferes on purpose for the betterment of things, as opposed to stumbling into it and going, oh crap, this is bad.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think it's still kind of open for interpretation either way.
Sure.
I wound up being okay with how they resolved that aspect of it, but it initially just sent me off. I don't know if you'd do that, but okay.
I could see where it feels like an abrupt change. Sure.
I can buy it from the standpoint that, because it's the master, because it's somebody from home, that even he admits, well, maybe not a friend, but I mean, it seems like they were much more antagonistic than ever friendly in this story. So maybe those feelings come later, as the memory cheats and you look back on things more fondly. But I think maybe that could also play into it, that this is really the first example from home that we get chronologically, and that he might be a little more inclined to try and help clean up the mess, feeling that sense of responsibility for it. He doesn't have that later with the time meddler, but I think stranding the meddling monk in this time frame without his TARDIS being readily accessible was probably punishment enough.
Well, and there's not as much to really clean up with the time meddler either.
Yeah,
right.
Just that atomic cannon that we left on the cliffside for some kid to find.
I also wonder if the fact that he resigns himself to the fact that he and Susan are stranded, like this is it. I don't think he expects to see the TARDIS again. In fact, he almost, that's almost his admittance when they do show up. Barbara and Ian show back up, but so I wonder if maybe that's part of it as well, is kind of that realization of, wow, we're
I hadn't put that together, but yeah, that totally jives.
Yeah, I thought a little bit of that too. That could be why.
Well, anything else on this story? I'm really excited to go on and listen to more First Doctor adventures, because there was a bang up start. I think they're onto something here, and I think I was a little apprehensive, because while I thought it was a great idea to bring the actors that briefly played Ian and Barbara and Susan in The Adventures of Time and Space, while I thought that was really a clever move on their part to do that, I was a little hesitant as far as accepting the fact that I would allow these guys to replace my favorite actors in these roles, and I'm very pleased that they're doing it with some finesse, and as Keith mentioned, they very much bring the spirit of the characters to it, and that's all it really needs in order to make these stories work. Agreed.
That says something too, quite honestly, for the very the very nature of Doctor Who, is that as long as you get the taste of it right, that you really have a blank check to do whatever, and that we're going to accept it because, well, you got this right. And so, once you get the voice of the characters in there, then we just kind of are along for the ride, because Doctor Who is so open as a universe that the concepts are, you can do whatever you want, and we're going to buy it. We're going to go, yeah, okay.
Well, should we move to another a master of a different sort?
I don't have a synopsis for
I didn't think you did. We are reviewing the second and I think soon to be out this week, third issue of Missy from Titan Comics. And we pretty much pick up where we left off last time with Missy and the... Well, we start out with a a flashback sequence, I suppose, a previously on. Well, it's not even previously on. It's a flashback to something that has happened prior to her off to break her previous incarnation out, and the Doctor comes in to find her, well, almost catch her playing with the TARDIS. So she, of course, just plays it off as though she's reading. But it does pick up then with the fight between the sword fight between her and Delgado's master,
which makes me wonder, based on little bits of dialogue throughout the next issue, if any of that is going to tie back in, because while Missy is quite obviously masquerading as Doctor Who, as we are continually reminded of. She does appear to be adhering to the rules.
Yeah.
She doesn't kill anybody. She tells the master no killing, and we definitely see him stabbing people with the sword later when the security forces show up. But I couldn't quite tell, because of the way that it's drawn. It's all in silhouette behind her. I couldn't quite tell if these were meant to be fatal blows or not. So
they didn't look like it to me.
I don't think so from her.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, certainly not from her. But I don't think Delgado's master did either. I think he was, for whatever reason, he's playing along. Because I think at this point, I'm gonna lose a lot of respect for the Delgado master if he genuinely hasn't figured out this is not the Doctor at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's something that comes up later that kind of makes me in the same boat with somebody else, but
I wonder if the conversation that we got just a little piece of between 12 and Missy is maybe going to be part of the setup for why she's off on this adventure.
I thought so too.
At the very least, it implies how she has his TARDIS.
Yeah. I think what the revelation down the road is going to be, because I don't think there's only is this a 4 or is this a 6? I think it's a 6 issue run, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I thought it was just 4.
It might just be 4, and I think one of the things that'll be one of the revelations will be the fact that 12 has put her up to this, and that this is part of the test that we get between the final episode and in that last season with Bill. I think this is I think this is part of that test period where she's locked up in that vault and trying to reform, and this is going to be one of her tests. Here's how do you really test someone? Well, go break your former incarnation out of prison and make them do something for you. I don't know. I think this is where this is going. It's what it feels like anyway.
I just can't tell where it's going, in the fact of with the whole key to time aspect of it, of what they're really after and what they're doing.
I think
because they sure are taking their time doing it.
I think it's a red herring, to be honest with you. I don't think they're really after the key to time. I think that's her setup in order to do whatever she's meant to be doing here, whether it's to learn a lesson. Because, well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, because as you pointed out in this one, she is playing by the book. She doesn't do any killing. She has convinced him not to kill, not to make the blows fatal anyway. And then somebody shows up to help up out, which I can't say that I was disappointed to see River show up. I mean, I absolutely love the fact that River shows up, especially since we're on Stormcage, but unless she's been put up to this by the Doctor, which I don't think she is, because I think that would kind of cheapen their last night together in Husbands of River Song. But I think that it seems odd that she wouldn't necessarily see through Missy's facade. It doesn't. It seems very. She's very out of character for the Doctor. And while I think she could probably fool Delgado, because I don't think that Delgado is, while maybe a close friend with the Doctor in at the Academy, I don't think they're as intimately close, obviously, as the River and the Doctor are. So it was really hard for me to buy that River didn't kind of see through it.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice cameo, but it felt like it was kind of a last minute, oh, hey, we're on Stormcage. We should have River Song show up at some point.
Sort of a cameo for the benefit of having a cameo.
Yeah, that's what it felt like more than anything else.
Almost as if the issue was half written and then somebody said, wait, this is Stormcage, right? Yeah. Your fans are going to throw things at the comic book shop if you don't put River in this. Oh, yeah, she would be there, wouldn't she? Ah, crap. Now we got to throw in some panels with River. Well, what can we ever do? I don't know. Maybe help them get out? Yeah, okay, we can do that.
I don't know that it felt that forced, but...
It was a wonderful surprise, don't get me wrong, because I didn't think about it. It wasn't until she showed up that I went, oh, yeah, River's in Stormcage.
So you're not one of the fans that would have thrown stuff at the comic shop saying, where was River? You were on Stormcage.
No, I'm not one of those people, but I'm rather obtuse. So, and I enjoyed their
You did read both halves of
playful
this.
banter. I did read both halves of it. Admittedly, I missed the very first page. And so I opened with the Doctor talking to Missy, and then suddenly Missy was surrendering, and I went, wait a minute. So I had to go back and reread those two panels, but I caught on much quicker this time out.
That's good.
But I loved River's playfulness with Missy, that, never met this regeneration before. It's different. Is that a problem? Oh, no, not at all. I mean, just the very easy going back and forth is still there, and fun and flirty, and just everything you would expect River to be, except not as sharp as she probably should be, which I'm hoping there's a reason for down the road.
We also don't know at what point in her timeline this is either, so...
That's true. It could be
that
early
is very
on.
true.
It could be early enough that she's not so on to it. She does, though, make the comment about, do you really think that the TARDIS could land anywhere in this facility without me knowing? So, I mean, that does give us a little hint to the fact that, although that might have been enough to convince her as well, too, at this stage.
Yeah, the fact that it was the TARDIS.
Yeah. Because the Doctor's not going to just give his TARDIS to anybody if it isn't him, or her.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't as wowed by this one, though. I mean, I thought it had a lot of nice, neat little things. I think it does advance the story well enough, especially the fact that, as Sean picked up on and I picked up on, that she's playing by the rules. She is very much, while being very tongue-in-cheek about Doctor Who, being Doctor Who, she is playing by the rules, and she is being very doctorly through most of this, so...
I also appreciated the visual design elements of all of the corridors that we ran through on Stormcage. Other than the one kind of overhead shot with the three of them that's very obviously a prison, the rest of it almost looks like Star Trek. It's very Enterprise corridors.
A little bit. I can see that.
I can see that.
They've got a lot of, doors and curving hallways and carpet, and it just had that kind of aesthetic to it.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that was a chance to remind us that we're in a prison by doing that wide shot with the catwalk entries and the prison bars.
And I love the way that's done too. That it's one big splash panel, and yet you've got your main group of characters in three different positions on the splash panel, having a carried-on conversation that just kind of flows around the room. It really does a very nifty job of implying the passage of time.
It does.
Just within that one thing.
It really makes the characters feel like they're in motion.
And then the door. What is behind this damn door? I mean, because I don't believe for I'm with you. This is a MacGuffin. I don't believe for a minute we're actually after the key to time. What is behind the damn door?
Well, supposedly... Supposedly it's the key to time, but I'm with you. I don't think it's the key to time that's in there. Well, let's move on to the next one, because this is the one that I was a little perplexed by, because quite frankly, other than walking through different incarnations of the Master, I don't know what purpose this one was serving. It was a nice trip through the past and seeing some familiar scenes and some not so familiar scenes and some welcoming scenes and some unwelcoming scenes. And but it didn't really
Hungry.
it doesn't really feel like it advances the story well enough. It's just it's almost like filler is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. The only thing I think it kind of advances is probably the Delgado Master's suspicion of what's really going on.
Yeah.
I appreciated the how do I want to say this?
The fan service. I mean,
Yeah,
that's mostly what this comic is.
It is. It really is. And giving Delgado the opportunity to see the newest incarnation at work, and kind of being very, I don't know, in a way, very shocked that not only did we reference a previous episode in this comic, but we did such a recent episode in this comic. Yeah. That was kind of a very cool thing. And then realizing that, okay, we're going to kind of do the Master's greatest hits here, right, along with some of the Doctor's most embarrassing. Yeah. I mean, really, we've got the first one, we get to see the Doctor kneeling in surrender. Then we see the Doctor on the tank, wailing with the guitar, which of course we as fans think is cool. Nobody else would think that. But then, I hate to say this, but yeah, the John Sims Master really just kind of sucked all the energy out of this tribute. And not only that, it was the longest segment.
Yeah.
And then it ends so horribly that did you just feed that guy to my former self? Oh, I tripped.
Here's Missy.
That's kind of now the one thing that we've
Missy
playing by the rules.
Here's Missy doing a great job of playing by the rules until this moment.
But doesn't that also set up how the Master? Don't we see him get that guy in the actual episode?
Yeah.
So isn't that just kind of showing us the setup of here's how this guy wound up in that situation?
Well,
are you arguing that it's a bootstrap paradox that she had to be there in order for?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's how I was allowed it to kind of let it go. Is they're just setting that up so that how that guy winds up there, sort of situation.
Okay, I didn't need it, but I didn't need it.
I'm not saying I needed it, but.
And then I think we while the War Doctor moment is very cool, I think there was probably far too much information given to past Master during that exchange. It's like, you're really just going to tell him all about the war and the okay. I mean, not that Doctor Who has ever concerned itself with, hey, maybe you shouldn't break the timeline.
Well, I also assume that once they separate, Delgado
he'll have
remember.
forgot. Yeah,
he'll have forgotten a lot of it. And then the absolutely wonderful panel where we get the flashbacks of the other Masters, and what a cool and unique way to do it with 8 and sidestep rights issues.
Yeah, right.
I was my initial reaction, I was disappointed. And then that was immediately overtaken by, oh, that's cool. Because that's not a moment that anybody ever references from the movie.
Right.
The hospital, the ambulance chase sequence.
Right.
Nobody's going to do that. That's the most American thing about it that everybody hated. Because, no, we're going to embrace it and do it. I was so happy.
Is the bottom left one of that panel, is that supposed to be like his first story? With the Autons, is that the couch that eats people?
It took me. I kept staring at it and staring at it and staring at it, going, "What is this thing? Yeah. Who is that person? It's a couch." Okay,
I just now got it.
Yeah, well, that's what that implied to me. Yeah.
Once I finally got it, it was a very cool thing. But up until that point, it was like, "What is that?" But yeah, it felt very. What are we doing? Why are we stepping through this? What is this key supposed to reveal of the, and then, it's a stapler, which again, I don't buy for an instant. I don't believe that the stapler is actually the key to the door to the thing. I really feel like all of this has been set up in order for Missy to get Delgado's master to Unit HQ, that she's been stringing him along and then allowed him to wander off. And now I fear for the brig. I'm genuinely concerned.
Well, that cliffhanger at the end. Find out what the brig's up to.
But maybe I'm attributing far more credit and intelligence to this thing as than is written.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying the ride, so
yeah,
I'm going to allow the possible nonsensical filler.
Yeah,
and the fan service in order to get to the end of this thing.
That's just it. The contrivances are easily overlooked because I am enjoying the ride as well. I think that Hauser's still done a very good job of. I think that the one thing that I've noticed is, and I rarely say much about the art, and the art looks great. Don't get me wrong. I think that the art is good. It's good drawings, but I think sometimes the representation of at least in these last two stories, representations of the characters are a bit off for me. River does not look like River in the last book. Delgado seemingly becomes less and less Delgado-ish throughout. I don't know how that happens.
There's one point he looks blonde.
Yeah. Sim's master does not look like John Sim. And again, as long as the voice is right, and as long as I look at it and go, okay, this is definitively who this is and what it is, whether they look exactly like them or not. I'm usually okay with that, but there's some moments where I'm like, okay, this seemed to be better in that first story. I didn't look to see if they changed artists.
It is the same creative team throughout.
It is, okay. So,
at least so far.
So I think whoever is drawing this, I don't want to say they got lazy. I don't want to accuse them of that, but it doesn't seem as sharp as the first story. Roberta Ingranata is the artist for this series. So, like I say, the art is fine. It's just the renderings of our familiar characters aren't as, I think, on as they were in the first story.
And some of that, too, can be possibly hand-waved away with, just comic production schedule. Because the first issue is always, and then the deadlines kick in.
Yeah.
Right.
And suddenly you realize,
a little more time
I got to draw another
first one.
I got to draw another 32 pages by next week. Uh-oh.
That's true.
Maybe I shouldn't have spent so much time on that prison.
I like where it's going. I think, like you said, I'm enjoying the ride.
It's a very fun series so far, even if the plot is a bit thin.
Yeah. Well, anything else on these two books? What do we got coming up on the schedule then?
Well, coming up on the schedule, we return to Big Finish with the Ninth Doctor. The Ninth Doctor Adventures, the entire box set Ravagers. So it'll be 3 audios that we listen to and review next week. The Sphere of Freedom, Cataclysm, and Food Fight, all written by Nicholas Briggs. And starring our favorite Ninth Doctor, the one, the only, Chris Eccleston.
Our favorite Ninth Doctor?
Our favorite Ninth Doctor.
Of the 3 we've had, is what you're saying.
Sure, we'll go with that. And then for those who voted, you may remember that we did a poll to cover which Lost in Time we would be delving into and exploring next of the ones that don't unfortunately exist anymore. And the Space Pirates won. So we'll be taking a look at that story with a recon and the novelization to kind of fill you in on all the news that's fit to print there. And then a very special outside the box, let me tell you. doing something quite unique for our 500th episode.
You're really hyping this up.
I am really hyping this up. I hope that you will all be as excited as I am to see how this is going to turn out. I make no promises, but I am very excited by this.
I don't know how much you're going to say, but I'll give you a hint. We're going to spin some platters. as they would say.
Ooh.
And a lot of kids won't understand what you're talking about.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
You're so cute. You think kids listen to us. I guarantee you the two old guys in the back are going, "Oh, I got that one." Ladders, man.
All right. Well, be sure to check out the website, travelingthevortex.com, for updates. And if you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on the Patreon link and supporting us. And you can also give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you get this podcast from. All those ratings and recommendations really help bump us up. And, of course, make sure that you join the conversation in our listeners forum on Facebook. You can engage with the other listeners and share your thoughts and insights with us and others. And if there is nothing else before we close this show, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
No, I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.